So there's an old SNL skit. It had the following phrase, and this has always stuck with me through the years: denial. It ain't just a river in Egypt. And I think the Bears are hearing this. They are no longer in denial about this team, about this franchise as a whole. And I think the Bears took a huge step regarding their coaching search. And that's by providing realistic assessment, realistic issues to be addressed on the team. And that's when presenting this coaching job to potential candidates. And this will actually be a huge and much needed change. Not a lot of people are talking about it. I'm going to break this down. And I also have a question for you in the comments. Let's interact. What do you think is the biggest issue to be addressed by the Bears this offseason? Is it really just a need for a good coach and we're good? Is it the offensive line? Is it the pass rush? Is it the secondary? Leave a comment. Hit the subscribe button as we push towards 10,000 subscribers here. It would just be a huge blessing. And I'm going to open up this story on si.com, always a good source. And also in this video, let's walk through what we're hearing from one of the top candidates, and that's Ben Johnson. And we'll hear from him regarding our quarterback, his interest in the job. We're also going to touch on the job security within our front office. So getting to it, one tell that the Bears are trying to get this hire right. It's a change in narrative. It's a change in presentation as this season just slogs on. The Bears' messaging seems to be matching up with the desires of Ben Johnson for the type of team he's looking for to be a part of. And this is really interesting how this matches. Let's start with what we're hearing from Ben Johnson. And as for Johnson, if you remember his asking price last winter, that may or may not have scared a lot of teams. And that's before he returned to the Lions for another season. But on Thursday, NFL insider Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, he reported that Johnson would, and I quote, want a team that'll create alignment between the head coach and the general manager, and also an owner who's willing to honestly identify his or her team's weaknesses and address them aggressively. And these are two prerequisites to leave Detroit in either January or early February. This is a rehash of what Johnson has been consistent in saying through the media during all of this time. And he's also gone out of his way to positively address Caleb Williams and talk about him and his abilities. And it's also no secret that Johnson is really intrigued by our rookie quarterback. So this is when Johnson was asked Thursday about Williams' skill set. And this is before our game against Detroit. They're 12-2. We are 4-10. Absolutely unacceptable. But here's here directly from him. It's been difficult to just sit down and study every throw of Caleb's, but plenty of crossover tape over the course of the year. And there's no question that this guy is talented. And this is straight from Johnson. I remember standing on the sidelines last game. That's the Thanksgiving game. And you could hear the ball whistle by you. He's got quite a fastball. He has some creativity to him as well. He can extend plays. He's accurate down the field. I haven't really dove in and can't tell you much more beyond that, but he's been really impressive from afar. And if you look at this objectively, this pairs up so well with reports on what the Bears are telling potential candidates vying for this head coaching job. And this is corroborated by Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune. The Bears have really changed their tune quite a bit. They've switched to being brutally honest about past failures and how that will change moving forward in tandem with the right coach. And you can't help but think that this is, in a way, like bending, trying to form this coaching position to the Lions' Ben Johnson. So you be the judge, but this is a direct quote from Brad Biggs. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold here. The impression that I'm getting is that the Bears have been pretty forthright about their shortcomings. I'm told by sources outside the building that the team's top leadership, and I'm talking about this including Warren, including GM Ryan Poles, they've been reflective. They've communicated the right message. And does this mean that they'll be in line to get their top choice? And I'm thinking that might be Ben Johnson. There's no way of telling that, but they've at least created a scenario where I believe the top candidate would be receptive to listening to the Bears pitch and hearing from them. So, I mean, that really matches up with what I shared earlier from Johnson. He desires an owner who's willing to honestly identify his or her team's weaknesses and address them aggressively. The Bears are preparing to do that, and they're messaging that. And this is a huge shift from earlier, even from us as fans, myself included. The thought that all we need earlier in the season is the right coach and it's playoffs, it's prosperity. But we're seeing this lack of a rebound after firing our head coach. I think that's pushed the team leadership away from an arrogant view of the roster. And this is a really good thing. It very well might be the catalyst for real change. This team not balling out for interim head coach Thomas Brown. Definitely coaching has always been an issue. No doubt about that. We know the offensive line is just a garbage dump. It's a train wreck, whatever word that we want to use to describe it. But work on our pass rush is needed too, right? It collapsed after the injury to one player in Andrew Billings, really exposed the line due to the injury of one guy. It's our running back room. Is that sufficient? Do we truly have the every down home run hitter in DeAndre Swift that we need? Is him and Johnson enough? And even looking at wideout, looks really good on paper. But is there really a player that's stretching the field vertically? That's another issue. And Brisker, he's still not recovering to his old self. Kevin Byard isn't a spring chicken, right? That position needs to be addressed. So, there's a ton of work to be done here, right? This realization that might also signal that we need to not have blinders on, not only look at coaches that are offensive minded and with that, perhaps unexperienced, right? Maybe we have to widen our view by being honest about this roster. Team has lacked discipline across the board. Someone like Mike Vrabel, he should seriously be considered, along with the usual offensive-minded suspects like Johnson and, yes, Joe Brady. But let's also be clear, with the roster issues in general, this is a great opportunity to any candidate. A roster still stacked with high-end talent. No secret, this gig could be one of the most coveted jobs across the league. So we want to realize that this is an attractive job. The presence of players like Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Romo Dunze, without even getting into the defensive pieces. That means whoever takes over this team will have some intriguing talent to work with, and the salary cap is incredibly healthy. We're going to come into next year. So far, number 5 in salary cap room in the NFL with 80 plus million. And that's before the league year starts. That's before a possible increase in the salary cap. So that could even get better. And then we're looking at whoever's a part of the interview process. It's going to be determined if there's going to be questions about GM Ryan Poles' job security as well, because we're looking at a crazy week losing streak. Ownership and team president Kevin Warren, they could decide to hand Ryan Poles a pink slip, right? Simply because they're interested in maximizing the window of opportunity this franchise has. This is with Williams at quarterback, and we're looking at some point, GM Ryan Poles, this record that the Bears have had over his watch, it's got to stick to him at some point. So I'm not advocating for his firing, but it's definitely something that might happen. It definitely might be something that is needed to make sure that there's full alignment, and also just starting freshly with a head coach and a new front office. I mean, that's very, very possible. We're also looking at the coaching issues going way beyond the head coach as well. We haven't fully cleaned house here. I mean, you look at Eberflus, he was judged so poorly, right? He led a team that couldn't finish the third season after winning only 14 of 46 games during his tenure. Couldn't coach at the end of games. I mean, that horse is dead. But we got to be honest that he also couldn't pick coaches. Coaching staff so unstable since last year. On our third offensive coordinator, third defensive play caller, third running backs coach, second cornerbacks coach. I mean, they've changed quarterback coaches, wide receivers coaches. Seems like the only place with less stability at Halas Hall is this nonsense on the offensive line. But there's really no point in keeping anyone on the staff. The only outlier might be John Hoke. I mean, he's coached the cornerbacks really, really well. The players have always show immediate improvement. The subs that come in play really, really well, just really good production under him. And as long as they're paying attention during the start of Hail Mary passes, it's a good secondary. But that's the only coach I think on staff that I would even consider keeping. But even that has to be fluid. But we're looking at hiring a head coach that can make up for this shoddy, just terrible way that Williams has been coached, the way he's been handled. And it's absolutely imperative that we don't waste his arm talent, but we also can't waste the defensive talent. And I think we need to cast a really wide net when looking at head coach candidates and not just be pigeonholed into an offensive minded first year head coach. I mean, lots of stuff to consider, lots to talk through moving forward. I will be right here with you as things become more clear. Let me know what you think is the main part of this team, this franchise that needs to be fixed heading into the offseason. I know, hard to pick just one. And we'll continue to communicate, bear down, and looking forward to this Lions game. See you.